Hello, BookTube. Recently, a kind of peace has broken out in the ongoing savage haul wars that have been roiling through our corner of BookTube. I was looking for a little trouble along the border of Grammaticovia. I was thinking that's where the trouble would come from when I was caught completely unawares by a surface nuclear weapon test. So not an act of war, but definitely saber rattling from Gavin at Genre Books, who went to Hay-on-Wye, the book town, and just shopped his way from one end to the other and gave a great haul video about the proceeds. Incredible. I'll leave a link to it down below. But naturally, I thought this deserves a response of some kind or other. So I went to the Brattle bookshop in downtown Boston. It was bright and sunny. It wasn't bitterly cold. There was no spitting sleet in the air. So it was pleasant to browse. And those of you who are new to the channel might be wondering, well, why would the weather matter at your used bookstore? And the answer is because the Brattle has a sale lot next door to the shop that's open to the elements and is full of thousands of sale books. So I usually shop out there, and I did, and I got a ton of books, just a ton of them, that I thought we'd go over. I started this Brattle haul video an hour ago, and it had adorable Frida footage and whatnot. She's right next to me now. She's sound asleep right next to me. But she was hopping all around. She was as cute as could be. And it didn't take for some reason. I stopped recording the video and there was nothing there. It was not that it had cut out early. It hadn't bothered to record at all. I don't know what's going on there. I hope it doesn't happen again. But I thought I'd give this another try because Brattle hauls you don't like to miss. So we can start with the mass market paperbacks. I found a mass market paperback of The Return of Moriarty by John Gardner. These are great Sherlock Holmes pastiche novels, really deeply textured and very steeped in the canon. Some of my favorite Sherlock Holmes pastiche novels, all centered on Moriarty, where John Gardner's central conceit of these books is that if Holmes could survive the Reichenbach Falls, then so could Moriarty. Then we have this. This is a Black Lizard Press book, but it's an old mass market paperback. It's The Root of His Evil by James M. Cain, with that symbol up there of a black lizard. This is a tiny little thing, take an hour to read, about, if I remember correctly, a woman who is leveraging her beauty for all the good things in the world. Money, security that money gives, not men, not matrimony, but money, ambition. If I remember correctly, that's what this is all about. And the one thing that I don't remember is the ending. I don't remember what Cain does with the ending, with her story. I know the book is her story, but I don't know how he twists it. Does he punish her for her greed, as sexist authors of crime fiction in the 20th century often did, or not? I don't remember that. I'm tending to think that it's probably a disappointing ending, and that's why I'm not remembering it. But I'll give it another read, absolutely. I'm reflexively looking at the camera because I'm worried that this video isn't recording. Then I found a UK mass market paperback, a pan paperback of Mr. American by George MacDonald Fraser, with this weird cover, to put it mildly. I'm assuming he is the main character, the so-called Mr. America. Mr. American is he's a figure. He strikes it rich in America. He goes to his quote-unquote ancestral homeland of England, and there, by random chance, strikes up a friendship with the king, my king, King Edward VII, and thereby becomes the toast of London and gains entree to the upper levels of English society, and that makes his position. He buys a stately home and falls in love, or seems to, and that makes the interruption of a figure from his past all the more dramatic. He has a bit of a murky past, and someone comes to lay claim to it, and there has to be... It's a weird George MacDonald Fraser novel. There was an American trade paperback of this decades ago. That was the last time I read this. And that trade paperback cracked in two on me. But it's, I don't want to say stodgy, but it's close to stodgy in terms of a George MacDonald Fraser book. This is, of course, the author of the Flashman novels, which are also historical fiction, but they are anything but stodgy. And this, I will give this another try. Flashman appears in this book as an old man, pretty sure that chronologically speaking, it's the last appearance that we get of him from George MacDonald Fraser. But I seem to recall that this was mostly a by-the-numbers historical novel. Which is, again, when you read the Flashman books, you don't expect that. That's not what they are. But I'll give it another try. It's been a while. Then we have Midair by Frank Conroy in this Penguin Contemporary American Fiction series that had this design to it. That series is well worth collecting. Whoever was the editor in charge really picked some winners. And this is Frank Conroy's fiction follow-up to Stop Time, his great memoir. Not a long thing. Again, I got a lot of these thin books, but that won't take me any time to reread. But I'm happy to have them. I didn't have this. Same thing with this one. This author I've praised on this channel many times, and when I do, invariably one of you will ask, "Can you send me something?" And invariably I end up sending everything I have, which so that this morning when I saw this book, I realized I didn't have anything. The author is Freya Stark, a great traveler, a great adventurer who did tons and tons of travel writing books. And I found one of hers from Modern Library. This is The Valleys of the Assassins. But it really wouldn't have mattered what I found. When I saw this trade paperback out in the sale lot, I looked around for others. I didn't see any others. But she's great, no matter what. Writing about her travels in the Middle East and elsewhere. She's just an eloquent writer that it really doesn't matter what the book is. I'm happy to have this one. And I haven't read this one in a while, in a long, long time, so I will gladly reread it. Then I found a UK trade paperback, a squat little hardcover Penguin, of Claire Tomlin's biography of Samuel Pepys, which I have read many times. I've had it many times. I've given it away many times. I don't think I've ever had this trade before from the UK. A squat little thing. Really, really hits well in the hand. And, I often hesitate with Samuel Pepys biographies because I always think, a well-annotated version of his diaries will serve just as well. In fact, it will be more entertaining. But that's not true. Of course, that's not true. And Tomlin does a great job. I love this book, so I should have it, and I will. This UK trade paperback has heavy stock cardboard for the cover, and heavier stock paper for this colored inset here. And then you get the normal paper of the book. So I may have to just put a quick piece of tape in there to reinforce that so it doesn't pop off the text block. But it's been a while since I read this book. And then I found a little trade paperback of The Fall of Gondolin. These little volumes were gleanings that Christopher Tolkien made of the writings from the Unfinished Tales and the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings, of some bottled subject, whether it was The Children of Hurin, the book that surprised the Tolkien estate by becoming a New York Times bestseller, or Beren and Luthien, or in this case, The Fall of Gondolin, the fall of a hidden kingdom, where the forces of evil were all around it, and the forces of evil were very much looking for this kingdom and couldn't find it. So the whole book is a slow revelation of how the forces of evil find it and how they eventually infiltrate and destroy it. We have Alan Lee artwork here. There's the city being destroyed. Those are some of the remnants of survivors. As you can see, the dragons destroying the place. The Dark Lord unleashes all of his foes against the beautiful city, and it doesn't stand a chance. These little volumes that were put together, since they have the original artwork, that's a huge recommend. But they're also really interesting in their own way. Gondolin, the Fall of Gondolin, is a great story. In the Silmarillion, it takes 5 pages. Here, there's a lot more that is filled in all around it, and I've always enjoyed these books as they come out, and I've never kept them. They also go out the door to Tolkien fanatics. Every one of them has. I think I've hauled every one of these things from publishers on this channel in the last 8 years. I think I've hauled every one of them. And sure enough, the advanced copy and the finished copy, I get rid of them. I would love to find all of these in trade paperback, and a nice box set would be great, because I would go back to them. Then I found an old novel. This is, what did I say this was? 1908? 1908. This is Hudson Douglas. This is A Million a Minute. The type of thing that you find for $3 in the Brattle sale lot that you're never going to find anywhere else. This is Hudson Douglas was once a well-known author. This is, I think, his second most famous book. Once Upon a Time. Now he's long gone. No one's ever going to reprint him. No one's ever going to remember him. I'm sure he's impossible to find. Maybe he's on Project Gutenberg. But he wrote these pleasant romancy novels that did really well. And this one is full of illustrations. The first illustration is behind onion skin and is color. That beautiful thing right there. He's approaching her on the beach. But there are black and white photos. Not photos, but illustrations scattered throughout here. Let me see if I can find one. It says there's discoloration. Oh, there we go. She's holding a gun on him. There's discoloration on some of the pages here that makes me feel like this was at a beachside house, which would very much fit with this author, because these are disposable trash. You really enjoy them. They're really enjoyable. They don't slow down at all, so you're not bored. They're really enjoyable. They're sweet, and then they're over with. I had an old friend a long time ago who had a whole shelf of these in brand new condition because you bought them new. And I kick myself that all those decades and decades ago I didn't say, I'd very much like it if you would give those to me. And I'll carefully restore them and put them in a box and nothing will happen to them. Because I didn't do that. I wasn't reading at the time. I didn't care about them. She would have loved that request. She would instantly have granted it. And I'm sure that those books ended up in a landfill. I'm sure that no one even cared about them, so they just got thrown away. So it was a joy to find this at the Brattle for dirt cheap. I'll gladly read it. Then boy oh boy, at the Brattle sale lot, it's not organized in any way except by price, $1, $3, and $5. So you really have to browse. You have to buckle down and browse. And I'm not saying that as a punishment. That's a lot of fun to do. But when you're doing that, you can see little blocks of concentration, little things where you can easily gather that you are looking at a group from one buy. The store went out and got these from one person. That happens from time to time. Almost every visit, you can see some remnant of something like that. And today I saw that, oh my, out in the sale lot. There were a whole bunch of books on Walt Whitman. And I mean the kind of book that you don't see at any used bookstore, that you just don't see them. One after another after another. Older biographies, older literary studies, older collections of bibliographies or whatnot. And the thing about them being out in the sale lot is that you can't call the shop and say, would you go and get those for me? Because there's no organization out there. They'd have to hunt for them. And although I learned this morning that some people do call and ask them to hunt for them, you can't. The shop employees are the nicest people in the world. They'd be well within their rights to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go out and rummage around in the sale lot for 4 hours when I should be working. The point I'm trying to make is that if I'm not a huge Walt Whitman fan. I like him, but I don't love him the way that some of his fans do. And if one of those fans had been with me this morning, they would have unhesitatingly grabbed every one of these older books. Because one of these things showing up at your used bookstore would be the find of the year. And there were like 15 of them. The type of thing I'm talking about. But I saw that block of Walt Whitman books and I thought, well, I don't want to go crazy here. I'm not all that much of a Whitman fan. I already have the edition of Leaves of Grass that I like. I have the Penguin Classic. I don't really need more than that. But there is one book on Whitman that I would like if it's here, and I'd no sooner thought it than I saw it. It's Newton Arvin's book on Walt Whitman. Newton Arvin wrote about a handful of titanic American literary figures, including Whitman. This was like his second or third book. And the minute I saw it with this design, I immediately wanted to know. And this is that book. This is his book from 1938. This says first printing. So this is just what you would have seen in bookstores at the time. And it's a study of Whitman, but a biography and also a literary study. Just wonderful. Newton Arvin is so good. Of course, he was the subject of a scandal in his own time that was made into a book called The Scarlet Professor. He was sacked from his career. His whole life was sidelined because very tame photos of half-clothed men were found in his room. And it was 100 years ago, so that was deemed to be scandalous pornography, when it wouldn't be anything now. An elementary school teacher could have one of these pictures as his screensaver, and his administrator would not even talk to him about it. It's completely mild now, but at the time it was enough to almost ruin Newton Arvin. He kept writing and reading, but he was a wreck. This was long before then. This was at the heyday of his literary career, and I have his book on Longfellow, which is the last thing that he wrote, and I have his book on Melville, which is brilliant, just brilliant. And the minute I saw all those Whitman books, I thought, well, the one Whitman thing I'd like would be Newton Arvin's book on Whitman, and there it is. So I grabbed it. Then we have a blast of one author, one great American historian of my acquaintance called this great American historian the greatest great American historian. This is a figure who, when he was traveling from his one house to his other house, traveled within 5 feet of where I'm sitting now. From my porch, I could have reached out and grabbed the bridle of his horse. And the figure is Francis Parkman, who I've written about many, many times, and I've also read him many, many times. And he's tough to recommend. I recommended him some and given books of his away, but he's tough to recommend. He writes very much in the Gibbon-esque diction of another age, and he writes history, so that's 2 strikes against you right there. But there were a whole bunch of his books out in the sale lot for dirt cheap. So I don't have any, because every time I get anything of his, I mail it out. I'm going to try and hold on to these. I found The Jesuits in North America in this old little brown hard trade paperback from the 1950s that is really solid. This is going to hold up really well. And then I found The Motherlode. The Library of America did 3 volumes of Francis Parkman. Lovely things. And I found all of them for like $3 a piece. In perfect condition. I'm hardly going to turn that down. I found The Oregon Trail and The Conspiracy of Pontiac. That's 1 volume, and this is the uniform look of these. And then I found the 2-volume France and England in North America. It's just 2 big fat volumes. So for $15, which is what one of these things would cost in most used bookstores, I found the whole of Parkman in Library of America. That's not bad. I wasn't going to turn that down. They're wonderful to reread, and it's been a while since I reread Parkman. It's been a while, actually, since I did a concentrated tour of the great American historians. Bancroft, Prescott, Parkman, Samuel Eliot Morison. It's been a while since I did that, and really I ought to. And then the final thing that I got here was another biography, another very Americana biography, very American Brattle Hall here. Catherine Drinker Bowen, great historian and biographer, wonderful person, wonderful raconteur, a wonderful writer, fantastic writer. She worked her whole life on biographies of literary figures, legal figures, you name it. And at the end of her life, she was working on a book about Benjamin Franklin that would have been a monument. I believe it would have been her greatest book. But she died before she could finish it. And her literary executors and her friends and her publisher pulled together the parts that were done into a posthumous final book. Which is this, The Most Dangerous Man in America. These are scenes from the life of Benjamin Franklin. These are the parts of that Franklin book that were written. Oh my. There's our author as an old woman. Oh my. I guess it comes to us all. But I already know that I love this author. I don't know that I've read this book. But I already know that I love this author. Her credit in the Bank of Steve is not going to go down anytime soon. So, and it's sky high. So, and I have already a whole shelf of books on Franklin. What's one more? So I grabbed this as well. So that was a very American-centric Brattle Hall. We have The Most Dangerous Man in America. We have all of Francis Parkman, virtually all of Francis Parkman, in one form or another. This motherlode of Library of America, but also The Jesuits in America. And then Newton Arvin's book on Walt Whitman. That is wonderful. I found a Hudson Douglas novel. How wonderful. This is going to be so cheesy. They're just cheesy throwaway romances. Then The Fall of Gondolin with the illustrations in this trade paperback. I'd love to find a box set of these. That would be great. The UK Penguin trade paperback of Claire Tomlin's Pepys biography belongs on the shelf with all my other Pepys books. Valley of the Assassins by Freya Stark. classic travel writing, classic great travel writing. Midair by Frank Conroy. Nothing classic in there, but still worth having. Mr. American by George MacDonald Fraser with Tom Selleck on the cover there. The Root of His Evil by James M. Cain. I seem to remember, if I remember this correctly, I think I know who the his is in the title, but it's the story of a woman. It's more the story of a woman than anything else. And then finally, The Return of Moriarty. So The Return of Moriarty, The Revenge of Moriarty. John Gardner had a blast writing these pastiche novels. And they're a blast to read as well. So hoping that I can find the others in this format. And that's it. A nice Brattle haul here for you to try and forestall the violence of the Hall Wars. And I'll have to hope that this version of this video goes up, because you don't want to miss a Brattle haul any more than I want to miss a chance to prattle on about these things. But I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.